I'm your host, Brielle Starr from shamefreesex.com. By tuning in today, you are taking your next bold step towards fully embracing your authentic sexual self, absolutely shame-free. It's time to take your power back from shame and experience the life of your dreams, both in the bedroom and beyond. Let's embark on this transformative, shame-free journey together. Hello, Avaya family. I am Brielle Starr, online education coordinator for Avaya. Avaya is the creator of over 1,000 books, films, courses, teachings, and other supportive resources. Thank you so much for joining us. Our fellow teacher, Mia Leighty, is with us today to talk about the sacred return, reclaiming erotic innocence. Mia is an erotic empowerment coach, classically trained dancer, and mystic guide who helps people reclaim their erotic energy as a source of power, creativity, and deep wisdom. With roots in movement, theater, activism, and trauma advocacy, she blends somatic healing, sacred sexuality, and spiritual embodiment. Welcome to Avaya, Mia.
Thank you so much, Brielle. It's great to be here.
Yes, thank you for being here. It's so lovely to have you here with us at Avaya today. And I can't wait to learn about erotic innocence and what that means for anyone who isn't aware. But before we dive into that later today, I'd love if you could actually get started by telling us about perhaps some of the early seeds that were planted for you in becoming an erotic empowerment coach working in the field of sex and intimacy.
Absolutely. So we'll go back to the very beginning. I really believe that my conception was where it all began. My conception was very conscious. It was the early 70s, and my parents were very much in love, and they were on a mission to make a baby. And I really think that the energy and the intention that they were putting into this mission of theirs put a lot of energy into what I became. And this is actually what the Taoists believe. They consider that the Jing energy, the raw form of our sexuality, the sort of crude sexuality energy that everything is made of, is kind of what informs the life of the person. And I think that's true with my parents. I think that they didn't really think of it like they were doing conscious sex or tantra or sex magic or any of that. They were just like they were spiritual. They were very much into their faith in God, and I think that they were like placing their order. They were like blue eyes, dark hair, strong personality. Um, they were like putting in their order, listening to certain music, and they had their routines and their rituals. And so I really think that it kind of started from there. They were very affectionate, so I received a lot of healthy touch in my life, and I think that that's planted the seed that pleasure is an orientation and connection is an orientation. Um, I don't know how it started, but I started masturbating pretty young in life and just kind of was figuring that out for myself. My parents never shamed that. I feel extremely lucky. They didn't necessarily have the wherewithal to have like the appropriate conversation, but they were just affirmative, like, yep, that's natural, and we're not going to get in the way of that. So I think that was really helpful. Um, I don't know how it started, but I know that I explored a lot with my friends, a lot of my young girlfriends, playing dress up, exploring each other's bodies, maybe simulating kissing. And then it just sort of kind of graduated from there. And it just, as we grew older, we started playing more. And so that was I don't know, I guess a blessing. Um, Not to say I didn't have confusion. I was confused. I wanted to be a good girl. I was Catholic. I wanted to be a virgin. So I kind of had, uh, like early on, a little bit of a dilemma where I needed to kind of figure this out. And I think that's what set me out on that journey. I had my own relationship with God that was developing. And I had this desire to explore myself and this kind of natural orientation towards pleasure. Um, but yeah, had a lot of mixed messages, right? Just like we all do with the media and with my religion. And then I had been studying dance, and which was, all about rigidity and a perfection, and there was a way to do it. And yet I was in my body. right? I could see myself in the mirror. I could see myself moving. I would get feedback from my teacher. And then in my early 20s, I ended up hitchhiking to this gathering in the woods in the forest. It was all about drumming and dancing. So I was, 19 years old, around a massive bonfire with hundreds of other people dancing and drumming. And I just had this connection, like this is ancient, like humans have been doing this for a long time. And I think that really made me realize that you don't have to be a dancer to be a dancer, right? It's like built into us. And then later on in life, I ended up meeting a woman who was kinky, polyamorous, bisexual, a revolutionary woman, 10 years older than I was. And she's kind of my first mentor. But unfortunately, she was also my abuser. I got into a cult at that age. And so I entered into this religious repression. But still, I knew that she was nonconformist when it came to sexuality, and she was like very empowered in that way. So in my recovery, I had to reclaim all of this, my recovery from PTSD and from abuse. And so I went back into dance and theater and massage, and I had to sort of go back and reclaim all of that for myself. And I think that having that orientation at the beginning and then that split where I was like separated from my truth and my essence, which I think that we all have access to, it kind of forced me to go on this journey to find my power. As a 20 something, I was like 26 when I started my journey of recovery. So I found a book about Taoism, I discovered Tantra, and then, therapy, massage, dance. That's kind of the beginning of my journey of how I got to this path. So, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing about your journey and sharing about all the different things that you experienced, all the messaging that you heard and took on in your life, and just, yeah, a variety of different, that story just kept twisting and turning. I was not expecting some of that. So thank you for being so open to sharing with us and giving us some background. And if there was one thing that you experienced, perhaps it's maybe something you just shared about or something else, what would you say would be one thing that you experienced in your life that led you to merge the worlds of Eros and power together and choose to support all of the people that you work with?
Yeah, I really think it was that point where I had to be like, okay, I'm I'm traumatized and I'm confused and I felt like I was behind in life. And so I really decided that my recovery journey was sort of akin to like someone who is coming out of alcohol and drug addiction. It's a moment where you have to claim your sovereignty. And I just naturally went back into theater and dance because that was something that I knew. And I think that theater and dance is a place where Tantra and eroticism are intact and separated from religious repression and conditioning. So when you go into theater and dance, it's sort of like this hidden world of mysticism that is in your body. And I think that that allowed me to reclaim my voice, whether it was through storytelling through my body or being involved in acting in the theater. Um, and then because I was a survivor, I sort of naturally fell into the world of advocacy. I became a social worker. I did a lot of work with women and men that were survivors of domestic violence and abuse. And I just kind of found myself in that world and working with people one on one, like, you got this, you can do this. It's your sexuality is yours. Like I just sort of had this natural inclination to let people know that nothing is forever broken. Like you can get this back because it's never really gone anywhere. It's just kind of hidden. And yeah, I think that those two worlds of the arts and the advocacy, um, and then the seeds that had been planted all helped to converge to make this be like the obvious path for me. And it's been a little bit of this and that, pulling it all together. And obviously it's a lifelong journey.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I appreciate you mentioning that just now, that it's a lifelong journey, no matter what path people are on. It's a work in progress forever, and it can be fun. It can be a fun journey, some parts of it. So yes, I love
Yes.
that. And it was great to hear a little bit more about your experience and, once again, how you came into all of the beautiful work that you do today. And since we are specifically talking about things such as erotic innocence today, could you tell us about what that means? I'm sure a lot of people have no idea, so could you tell us about what erotic innocence is?
Yes, of course. And before I do, I would love to just start with talking about erotic energy, because I think a lot of people believe that erotic energy and eros and eroticism is reserved only for sexuality and sensuality. And in my worldview, I think that erotic energy is like the umbrella for all of these other things. And erotic energy is really truly that life force energy that's flowing through everyone, through all things. And having access to that and cultivating that is actually what gives us um, the permission to explore our bodies and to lean in toward the thing that attracts us and to follow that path, whether it's being attracted to a beauty like a flower or nature, or being attracted to someone's smile or the sparkle in their eye, or whether it's being called forth towards your path. I think all of this is inherent in erotic energy. It's that leaning toward the thing that has our attention, and that pulse that's moving us toward that truth or that beauty is our eros. And it's also a pathway to the deeper understanding of the entire universe. And this is why Tantra is so interesting to me, because what I think is one of the most important things about Tantra, and which tantric sex kind of falls under that, is this idea that even the things that are the most perplexing or painful or confusing or taboo, even and especially those things are the pathway to your enlightenment, to you knowing who and what you truly are. So, sex, because the way that it is in our world, where it's taboo and it's confusing and it's often hidden, that is a pathway. That is a pathway that you can take. And so I think when we think about erotic energy as something that connects us to the greater cosmos and it connects us to ourselves, the natural place for that is in the body, and sex happens in the body, right? In the brain and in the body. So I just really believe that understanding that our eros isn't just a desire for another body, but it's truly like our soul's longing for beauty and truth and transcendence and connection. So that stirring and that attraction that you may feel is actually just a whisper of the divine calling you closer. And therefore, following that is beautiful. And it's your journey. It's very unique to you. You get to decide what that is. So when it comes to erotic innocence, I believe that erotic innocence is actually with us all the time. It's imagine a baby just discovering the world and being around parents and caregivers that are trying to help it feel safe, help it feel comfortable. And a baby cries, no, I don't like that. Then the caretaker, hopefully, is like, oh, you don't like that? Let me give you something softer. Let me give you something quieter. Let me hold you closer. And this starts to wire the brain in a way that orients that human toward pleasure, toward comfort, toward safety, toward regulation. So I believe that our erotic innocence, our erotic energy, is not something that we grow into as we develop or out of as we age out, but it's actually the way that we grow. It's the way that our brain develops. This might be controversial, but I believe that parents and caretakers literally spend the first years of our lives turning us on. And I know that sounds crazy, but if you think about it, that's what they're doing. They're like, look at this beautiful thing. Read this word. Look at my face. Let's play. Let me tickle you. Let me hold you. Let me caress you. All of this is turning the child's development on, sparking that child, right? And I think that our erotic innocence is just that. And our sandbox just changes as we go through the lifespan, but we're just being curious and we're like, what will happen if I do this? And what will happen if I touch this and put this in my mouth and feel this and see those things. So I think erotic innocence is integral to having a healthy relationship with our sexuality. Um, and if you've been hurt through religion or your caretakers, or you've had any kind of break in trauma or like an accident or something like that, I think going back to your innocence of what do you like? What do you love? What makes you feel good? What makes you feel comfortable? What gives you pleasure? All of this is going to help you on that healing journey. Um, and if you're like trying to have better orgasms or a better connection with your partner, reclaiming your innocence, which might seem antithetical to that, is actually, in my opinion, the place to start. Like, just what feels good? What do I need to feel safe and relaxed? Do I need low lights? Do I need this kind of music? Do I need this type of touch? What is going to sort of turn my system on at the same time as helping me feel relaxed, just like you would for a baby, right? You want a baby to be relaxed and comfortable, but also turned on and stimulated. It's the same thing when it comes to our innocence. So I could talk endlessly about this, but I hope that that kind of gives a good introduction.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That was a great introduction. It was really interesting to hear about that. And so I'm wondering, perhaps you kind of went along the lines of this, but I wanted to ask it just to clarify. Is our erotic innocence something we are returning to? Is it something that's always present? We just have to remember? Well, like what is it like a state essentially? I don't
It's a good
know.
question. I think it's always there. I think our erotic innocence is our unique and authentic erotic essence, like our signature, right? Our like blueprint. Some people are slower in the way that they move in the world and they really love nice things and um, maybe they have a sense of humor. This is their erotic innocence. Other people are more oriented toward intellectual pursuits and they like to be stimulated, and that turns them on. This is their erotic innocence. I think it's really unique. And at the same time, it's something that we're always developing. And like I said, if you have a like a point of pain, a pain point in some way, like you were never allowed to develop your sexuality because of religion, even though your erotic innocence is always there, it could be the point that you return to start to develop, well, who am I and what do I like and what do I need to be turned on and what type of partners or touch. So just thinking about sexuality. But even if you're like, you know what, I want to be a poet, or I just feel like I'm supposed to be a painter. I think getting out a canvas or a blank piece of paper and taking that first step to make a line or do a brush stroke and play, I think that's also our erotic innocence. Or if you've been repressed or hurt and you've never been allowed to feel your feelings, like so many of us, right? Don't feel those feelings, don't feel those dark feelings. Or men, you should be more logical and not emotional. I think our erotic innocence is also includes our relationship to our emotions. So allowing ourselves to feel the full range of emotions and express that in healthy ways is also our erotic innocence and a way to reclaim our connection and our relationship to our erotic energy so that we can have great sex, so that we can have intimacy, or write a great book, or make an amazing poem, or a film, or start a business. For me, it's all the same.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for clarifying a little bit there and diving in just a little bit deeper. It was great
Yeah.
to hear about that. And shifting gears a little bit, talking a bit more towards the sex side of things. What if someone is desiring to experience deeper states of consciousness during sex specifically, where would you suggest someone begins who's interested in that?
Well, deeper states of consciousness. Let's see. I think talking about mindfulness is the place to start for that. We live in a world where we are go, go, go. We're highly stimulated, we're overstimulated, and we're constantly consuming. And so, therefore, we are not necessarily in touch on a regular basis with what's true for our state of being. And so, mindfulness, presence, present moment awareness, connecting to our breath, making sounds or listening to sounds very deeply. All of these things start to create like a safety in the nervous system, homeostasis, so we can actually be present. And from there, we may be able to enter into a deeper state. But there's also something called the default mode network. And the default mode network is something when we're daydreaming about the past or the future, or we're at rest, typically when we're in our mind. This is when we're constantly kind of focused here, and we aren't necessarily in our feelings or in our sensations. So we want to find ways to turn off the default mode network temporarily so that we can enter into deeper states, those theta states. And that I think is through breath, through sounding or singing, through dancing and movement, getting a massage, or even giving a massage, and then sex. But when we start sex or intimacy from this place of presence and mindfulness, I think that gives us the option and the opportunity to drop deeper. But we are not going to be able to drop deeper if we just go straight from working on the computer to trying to make out. I mean, some people might have a, an excitatory system, a sexual excitatory system that can do that quickly, but most of us need transition time and coming into the present moment so that we can actually drop in. And if you've ever just kind of gotten into a flow state through creativity or dance and you've sort of lost track of time, this is already a deeper state of consciousness. So if you want to drop into deep sex to kind of travel in consciousness or connect with your astral body or your energetic body, the step one is being able to enter into just the present moment. So I hope that answers your question, and love to know if there's something specific or follow up that you are curious about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I loved hearing about that and this idea of being mindful and present and how approaching sex from the beginning in that state of mind, I can totally see how that would make the whole experience a lot more connected and powerful, essentially, as well. And as you were sharing, I'm wondering for anyone who's less attracted to any like ritual or ideas that we classically think of when we think of making sex sacred, how would you guide someone who's not really interested in all of those bells and whistles and wants to benefit their sex life but doesn't necessarily want it to be so like maybe woo-woo or ritualistic?
100%. I'm probably kind of that person. So I love that you asked that question. It's definitely can be beautiful to have rituals. And like I said, some people need the environment to be such a certain way in order for them to feel ready. So I think I'm not definitely not against it, but it isn't only about chanting mantras or lighting candles or, looking into the left eye, or all of these things are just um, symbols and signals to the brain that this is a time that we're carving out specifically for this interaction. So I think it's about treating the erotic, or our bodies and our desires and our pleasure, not as something to hide or rush through, but as something meaningful. So, like I said, it's a way of saying this moment is meaningful. And when I speak of sacredness, I'm not necessarily referring to religion or um, dogma. I'm talking about a quality of attention and the way that we bring the presence and the reverence and the care to the moment is actually what makes it sacred. So it's like what happens when we slow down enough to actually tap into the mystery of what might happen. And the other thing is just like just by saying, I'm going to take the goal of climax or the goal of orgasm or the goal of full body orgasms or whatever it is that you're trying to do in that moment, just taking that goal kind of off the agenda, that's when we can tap into the mystery and we can actually be alive in the present moment. And that right there also makes it sacred. Just like when you're walking through the forest, even if you're like on a mission to find this specific plant or mushroom or whatever, everything that you see along the way is probably going to kind of stop you in your tracks. Like, oh, look at this tree and look at that flower. And now you're making love with the forest. Even though you had that that goal in mind, you weren't attached to it. So it's about kind of letting go of performance, coming into connection, and stepping through that doorway of sacred eroticism, which is, not lofty. It's just deeply human and embodied.
Mhm. Oh, I love the way that you described that. Deeply human and embodied. That was awesome. And also just that little description you gave about the forest. That was such a great example to really picture what you were explaining to us and picture that presence and that, embodied and conscious exploration. And since perhaps some people, yes, when they think of tantric sex or sacred sex, they thought of it in a certain way, a misconception you just showed us does not have to be true. This can be something that can be experienced without all the ritualistic side of things. So are there any other common misconceptions about erotic innocence or sacred eroticism that you find could be holding people back from exploring or embodying their truth?
I think this is where like a word like erotic sovereignty might be interesting. And just sovereignty on its own, this idea that whatever is going to create the environment for you to drop in, to have the best time exploring yourself and exploring the moment is the thing that makes it sacred and that makes it, that creates the environment for that. So letting go of it needing to be a certain way. And I think that's a little tough to do, right? You see Instagram and YouTube, and people are 3 steps and 5 steps to do it this way and to get this result. And 3 steps and 5 steps are great as a guide, but it's really upon each person and each couple or group of people that are embarking on this journey is to say, you know what? We're going to set the conditions and then we're going to let go and we're just going to drop into our innocence and we're just going to play and be interested in discovery. And also, if you've been wounded, you're carrying trauma or pain or confusion, I think it's important to have a lot of compassion for yourself and the people that you're connecting with and letting yourselves just orient toward pleasure for the sake of pleasure and not for the goal. And the more that you practice, because these are all just practices, the faster you drop in, hopefully, and the faster you catch yourself like, oh, I'm not dropping in. It's because this light is buzzing. It's because I have this itchy, rash and I need to take care of it. I actually need to pee. And so it's like being present with yourself and your body and being able to communicate that out loud if you're playing with other people. Um, and also being able to say, like, I'm a survivor of sexual assault and I need things to go really slowly and I'm totally down to play, but I just, need things to go slowly. So this is all sovereignty, right? Knowing what's true for you, being able to drop into the present moment so you can feel what your body's communicating, and then to be able to verbally communicate that, or with your eyes, right? And being with people that are paying attention, right? That's important too. You want to be hanging out with and playing with people that are paying attention to you and they're attuned to you so they notice, even if you don't, that you've slipped out of the present moment. And I think tantric, this concept of tantric sex and sacred sexuality can have a lot of lofty ideas of how it needs to be, and you need to be dressed a certain way, and you need to be speaking this certain way, and having the candles a certain way. I think that just definitely not the place to start. The place to start is with presence. And I think that if that's your orientation, you're going to have a good time.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That was amazing. And just this idea of starting with presence, it doesn't have to be this crazy ordeal. We can just start by being present, being conscious, being in our bodies. And I also really love how much you emphasize this idea of discovery rather than a goal-oriented approach. So I think that's really beautiful as well. And I would love if we could talk a little bit about how people can dive deeper with you, Mia, and all of the wonderful work that you do. I know you have a lovely free gift that you are offering our audience today, which is your empowerment mini course. And we have a button
Yes.
leading over to that down below if you would like to tell us about what that entails, what it's all about.
Yes. So the mini course is something that I put together, and it is a master class on erotic energy. It's called the One Sexy Secret. So I'm talking all about these things. What is eros? What is erotic energy? How is it connected to our spirituality and our intelligence? And then how to cultivate it so that you can have a deeper sense of connection to yourself, to the divine, to each other, to your path. So even if you're not trying to have tantric sex or tantric orgasms or whatever, and you're just like, hey, I just need better energy, more confidence, then this masterclass will help you with that. Then there's also a workbook, which is like a roadmap. There's some journaling questions. There's kind of like a little bit of my framework about what erotic empowerment is. And then there's also a 10-minute guided practice, which will help kind of recharge your battery, help you feel more empowered. This is not sexual. It's a breath practice and a posture practice that will help you sort of, even if you're just like, "Oh, I've been on the computer all day, I'm about to have a date, I need a little shift in consciousness," this 10-minute practice will work for you. So all three things come in the mini course, and it's great for anybody, whether you're a beginner just starting on the journey, or you want to just see how I look at it and maybe get a refresher.
Yay, beautiful. Thank you so much for creating and offering that wonderful resource. And as a reminder to anybody watching and or listening, you can click the button below, head over to Mia's website and check out that amazing offering. And then are there any final insights that you'd like to share before we wrap up, Mia?
Oh, I would just like everybody to know that your erotic energy is yours and you don't owe it to anyone. And it is really yours to discover. It's your responsibility to figure out what that is and how that works, and then learn these very basic practices of how to cultivate it so that you can use it in your life, whether that's just intimacy with yourself or the divine or with the partner that you choose. But just remembering that it's yours, and you get to spend your whole life on that journey.
So beautifully said. Thank you so much for that final message, as well as sharing all of your beautiful wisdom with us today about erotic innocence.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for spending this time with me and talking about my favorite subject, Brielle.
Yes, absolutely. I can tell it's your favorite subject. You are amazing and clearly so passionate. So thank you once again for being here. And I also want to thank our Avaya students for tuning in today, listening, and we will see you all again real soon. Take care, everyone. Explore more at shamefreesex.com. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so that you never miss out on another episode. Bye, everyone.